Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome to day number 17 of my January 2025 focus month on 60s, 70s, and 80s experimental slash ambient and new age experimental albums from those years. Today's review is on William Penn's album called Crystal Rainbows, which was done in 1978. This is a really interesting album. William Penn was a composer. He's just to read a little bit of his biography. He studied music at Buffalo University, graduated in 1967, studied Northern Renaissance music. He was composer, arranger, pianist, teacher, and producer. Heavy schooling from William Penn, and this is a really interesting album because what he did was he went to the Smithsonian Institution, the National Collection of Fine Arts, and took these pieces that are on this album, these ancient instruments of sound and music, and put them into an album and basically did an experimental album with it. It's a very unique album to listen to, and in some ways there may be the first and maybe only time you'll ever hear these some of these instruments used in this way, and just for that alone, if you're interested in sound and the history of sound and electronic music and also just uh, uh, natural instruments that aren't electronic music, it's just he this is a really important album to listen to, and it definitely gives you a perspective of the possibility in sounds throughout history of time based on some of these instruments and the sound they used. Basically, what William Penn did was he took those instruments and sort of blended it in with also some current instruments and sort of made like an experimental, almost electronic meets experimental sort of. I wouldn't say it's really classical music. It's really just I wouldn't say it's poppy music either because there's some depth in here and some. It's really just kind of a you know it's really even hard to say it's an experimental album because maybe the sounds are so experimental and unique sounding that they and so unique that they sound experimental, but I don't think it's really experimental. Maybe the use of them is with some of the newer instruments. There's like an ARP 2600 on here, a harmonia, eventide harmonizer. There's use of natural things to make sounds like chamber bowls, organs, glass harmonia, clavichord, just some really interesting, unique instruments. And this came out in 1978 or 1979, so one of those years. If I can't remember, it says it was recorded in the 1978. Here's a look at some of the instruments that they used. This tells a little bit about it here, but just some really interesting instruments and sounds. Again, if you're really interested in hearing some unique uh, tribal music, like you gotta check this out. I got this back in 2002 when looking for at the time I was really interested in finding different kind of music and unusual new age music, and I've talked about this before, but there was a older store in Washington D.C. outside of Washington D.C. and called Orpheus Records. And when I moved to DC, I was really kind of disappointed with a lot of the record stores that were there in electronic music and newer electronic music. So I was still trying to take advantage of the stores that were there. I went more into looking at the past and finding, you know, progressive you know, space music and progressive rock and old ambient music and experimental music and all kinds of different, and even industrial and early house music and even disco, early hip hop and electro. That's kind of what was at those stores. Anything up to like mid to late 80s. Freestyle music was in there, of course, just dance music in general. But that was kind of my focus, and I got a lot of older records there for the next few years. And so that was kind of like my favorite store in that area, combining with purchasing music online. And this is one of the albums that I bought, and I bought it just on the album cover. I mean, the album cover I think is really cool. And then I probably read on the back that it had some unique instruments on it and took a chance on it. I don't think I paid more than like $5 or $8 for this record, so it's. In fact, I did get a second copy and give it to a friend probably about 15 or 20 years ago when I saw another copy in the store. I bought another copy and gave it to my friend Scott out of Baltimore. And hopefully he likes it. But I think if you're interested, like if you like Dead Can Dance, if you like ancient kind of sounds, tribal music, ethnic ambient music, Eastern sounding things, Aboriginal, anything tribal, I think you'd be really excited to hear some of these sounds in here. There's 6 tracks on here. First track is called Reflections in Pastel Vase. This is my favorite track right off the bat on here. I give it 3.25 stars. Sounds very ancient and alluring and mystical, and I think it's a fantastic example of using the new instruments with the old. I think it's really a good song, and I really like the space that is created around the sounds, and it has a really nice ambience to the song. And I really feel like he does a really good job of letting these instruments shine. And there's a great balance, and they're used a little bit more than the electronic music, but there's a really nice balance between the two where these do shine. These instruments do shine on the albums. Track number 2 is an interlude called Crystal Rainbows. Basically, it's just a glass harmonica. It's the only instrument really on the track, and it's like 2 minutes and 17 seconds. It's really an interesting tone that the this piece creates. It's really haunting and a little eerie and kind of bordering on a little just a touch scary. Like it's really cool. We give it 2 stars. It's a good track, but I mean it's only 2 minutes. It only really just really only shows one kind of elongated tone from this one instrument for the most part. But it's interesting. I think probably the sound was so interesting that he was probably just like I'm just going to do an interlude with this, because he also does another interlude at the end as well with the same instrument and just only that instrument. Track number 3 is kind of I give it 2.5 stars. There's lots of cool sounds around the sort of main hook, which I believe is kind of like a thimble, like I couldn't remember what the instrument was, but it really reminds me of Strange Cargo. If you guys remember Strange Cargo, William Orbit's early project, it kind of sounds like Riding to Rio, or I think there was a Caliente song in there, so someone with like a Hispanic name in there, but it kind of reminds me of Riding to Rio or that other song. Kind of has like the same kind of like pace and sound. Kind of reminds me a lot of that. The first track on the second side is called Gossamer's Looms. This has a lot of instruments on it. I think there's a steel cello in here, I believe. Which is kind of intense. There's kind of a it's kind of almost a chamber music. It's verging on horror music, ancient sounding. It's amazing sound on this song. It almost sounds like the there's a sound in here that almost sounds like the sound that's in War of the Worlds, like the Tom Cruise movie when the robots make that kind of like sound, like whoa. Like there's there's a sound in here that sort of has that, and it's really natural and great sounding. Just some really cool sounds on this record for sure. The second track is called Iridescent Stillness Through Curved Space. This one is probably my second favorite track on the album. I gave it 3 stars. Just a beautiful piano. It's roughly about 7 minute piece. Really nice combination with some of the other instruments that I've already kind of mentioned. Just really nice and gentle, and definitely the best song on the second side for me. And then the last track is just a reprise of one of the songs on the first side, the Crystal Rainbow, and this is called Reprise Crystal Rainbow. I like it a little bit better than the other one, but again, it's pretty much just that glass harmonica sound, and I give it 2.25 stars. So overall, I add this up for 16 stars divided by 6. It's a 2.66. So I think that you know, it, you know, it basically combines to about a 67 out of 100. I'm good with that score for the album. I felt like I did want to give it a few extra points for just the overall product and the overall sound design of this and just the inspiration behind this. I would probably give like an 80 or 90 because I think going to a art institute and using old ancient uh, sounds instruments or things that make sound. I don't even know if some of them are really made to be instruments for making music. Like if you think of like just bowls, yeah, there's bowls that make music. I suppose that have you can sort of make them so they make certain tones. So I don't know if these bowls were certainly made to make music, but or they were just bowls of the period. But it's just I think it's fascinating just to make an electronic or experimental album, and sort of combine old instruments with new instruments. In that respect, I give the album full merit, you know, and I did feel like I wanted to give it extra points because of that. But considering there's only 6 songs on here and 2 of them are 2 minutes long, I feel like the I just feel like there could be a couple additional songs on here, and it could be a little longer. But having said that, I still think it's a good album. It's verging on very good, and I think it's worth your time to check out and listen to once. I think it's a really interesting album. I don't know if you'll be able to find all the tracks on YouTube. That's one thing I had to do is I do like reviewing the original album and listening to the original album when I was reviewing it. But this particular one I was reviewing at a family member's house at the time, and I don't believe they had all the songs on YouTube, but those are the ones that are on there. I think there's at least at least 3 of the 6 are on there, and I think it's a unique album to listen to. So check it out. Yeah, William Penn's album Crystal Rainbows. I give it a 67 out of 100. All right, thanks so much. Oh, if you do listen to this, tell me what you think. All right, take care.